Story time about how my husband keeps borrowing money from me and now wants access to my bank accounts. What should I do? Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's not on my Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 6 years. When we first got married, we were really young, so we were living with our parents. We didn't actually move out from my parents' house up until 2 years ago. In fact, I don't think we're actually adults yet. We both still act like we're teenagers. I'm 24 and he's 25. I recently got myself a really good job. He, on the other hand, has never had a really good job. He does a lot of odd jobs here and there, a lot of catering. He also models because he's extremely good looking. So now that I got myself a job, I wanted to get my own apartment. But of course, I have to include my husband because we're married. He actually ended up getting an okay job. We decided to split the rent and everything was going fine. But then he got laid off and this is when things started going bad. He started asking me for money because he wasn't getting paid anymore. Every now and then he would ask me for like $10 or he would ask me for my debit card. At first, it was just small purchases like going to the supermarket or going to Starbucks. So I gave him my card. One day I'm checking my bank account and I realized that he bought himself a $600 watch. You'll never guess what he said when I confronted him. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my husband keeps borrowing money from me and now wants access to my accounts. What should I do? Disclaimer, it's not my story time. Send me on Instagram. When I confronted him about buying a $600 watch with my money, he told me that he has every single right to use my money as much as I do. And even though I'm the one earning the money, he is my husband, so he can do whatever he wants with it. I got so angry, I picked up one of my crystals and threw it right at his head. Luckily, it missed him, but it did scratch his ear. He went berserk and accused me of trying to kill him. He ran over to the ER with a scratch on his ear. I went straight to my parents' house and I told them what was happening. Obviously, my parents agree with me that he should not be spending $600 of my money on a stupid watch. And they told me to take away any access he had to my money. So I took away my debit card and my credit card from him. We both ended up apologizing to each other, so for a few months it was okay. He had a few jobs, so he had some spending money for himself. But then he got fired again. That's when he asked me politely to add him to my bank account so that he could get his own debit card from my account. To be honest, at first I thought it was okay. But I didn't say yes or no. I called my parents and they told me absolutely not. And when I told my husband, he threatened to divorce me. He says that I'm neglecting his needs. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my husband keeps borrowing money from me and now wants access to my bank accounts. Disclaimer, is not my story time, it's on me on Instagram. That's when he threatened to divorce me because I wouldn't give him access to my checking account. He said that I was neglecting him. That's when he told me that if the tables were turned, he would be expected to give me money. And you know what? Totally true. At the same time, I can't allow him to just buy $600 watches. He then made a promise to me that he would only use the money for necessities. So for example, paying bills or anything like that. Although we already have our bills on auto pay, so I'm not sure how that would work. So I took him to the bank and I added him to my account. I know you all must think I'm so stupid right now. And you know what? I am. 2 days later after he got his debit card, I checked his bank account and he had signed up to 3 different OnlyFans accounts. That's a total of $50 a month coming out of my paycheck plus all the things that he buys on the website. I confronted him again and he told me that it was just for fun. And that because I'm at work and he's home alone, he needs something to entertain himself with. Then he told me that if he didn't have the OnlyFans accounts, he would probably end up just cheating on me. And then he asked me, what do you prefer, me watching stuff online or me actually going out and finding women? This is where I need your help. I see his point, but I'm not sure if this is like manipulation or something. He really seems so genuine and he's always doing my laundry, cooking, and cleaning up for me. Even rubs my feet when I get home from work. And I haven't told my parents about this. I think they'll hit the roof. Should I let him have access to OnlyFans and use my money? Or should I put a stop to it and risk him cheating?
My daughter recently turned 20. She's been dealing with major depressive disorder, social anxiety, anorexia, body dysmorphic disorder, and 2 autoimmune diseases since she was around 12. I'm very involved in her treatment and obviously wanted her to get better. So when her therapist recommended getting her a dog to register as an ESA, we got her one for her 16th birthday, named Juniper. I generally dislike animals, but it was for my daughter's sake, so I caved. Junie and my daughter grew close, and I've seen a notable difference in her since we got the dog, especially in her sense of independence and self-esteem. 4 years later, my daughter is now a part-time tutor, volunteers with the elderly, and attends school full-time with excellent grades. I'm so proud of how far she's come, and though I realize she has a ways to go, Junie has helped her and I credit the dog for that immensely. Here's the problem. While my daughter was at school, Junie got out of the house and got hit by a car. My wife and I rushed her into the vet and we were told that Junie would need surgery, which would cost somewhere in the ballpark of $2,000. I make a good salary, but I cannot justify spending that much on a dog, especially when it may not even work and Junie would probably be crippled. Plus, she was pushing 5 years old and her breed usually only lives 9 to 10 years. Due to all these reasons, I decided that the humane and logical decision would be to euthanize Junie. At this point, I called my daughter and let her know the situation and the solution I'd chosen, and she freaked out on me. She tried telling me how she had $700 in savings and would quickly find a job to pay me back the rest, to which I declined because A, it's not about the money, and B, I don't want to risk ruining her mental health by her getting a job, especially since she'd likely have to quit one of her volunteer jobs which have helped her so much. I explained this to her, but she wasn't hearing reason. So I put my foot down and said my decision was final because the dog was technically mine since I paid for it. Then I hung up. We put Junie down, surrendering her with love and gratitude. When we got home, my daughter had just pulled in and was hysterical. I told her that she was too old to be acting like this, and one part of becoming a competent, independent adult was accepting what life throws at you. Now she isn't speaking to me. I'm beginning to think that I should have at least told her where we were so that she could say her goodbyes. On the other hand, Junie already served her purpose in helping my daughter, and she only had the dog for 4 years. So I don't understand the huge overreaction. So am I in the wrong for euthanizing my daughter's emotional support animal for her own sake?
I put peanut butter in my friend's drink, thinking she was lying about her allergy. So you wanted to kill her? I was young, only in the second grade. Okay. I was young, only in the second grade, and had recently been taught about lying. After our lessons on sinning and doing bad stuff, I developed the idea that my friend, let's call her Lily, was lying about her peanut allergy and just didn't like peanut butter and was too ashamed to tell me because they were my favorite snack at the time. Not to mention the times when someone would bring in a snack for the class and we'd always have to check if they had peanuts in them. If they did, the whole class couldn't eat them so that she wouldn't feel left out. I was tired of what I thought was a dumb, made-up lie and decided to take matters into my own hands by bringing a jar of peanut butter and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Once it's snack break, I waited until Lily went to the bathroom to take out my peanut butter jar to slip a spoonful into her cup, shaking it good so she wouldn't suspect a thing. When she came back, she sat down and drank some of her peanut butter-infused water. As she did, I watched with wide eyes, making sure to take in every detail, now convinced that she's been lying the whole time. Suddenly, Lily started coughing uncontrollably, choking and thrashing herself all over the floor. It also didn't help that she forgot her EpiPen at home that day, causing her to convulse and forcing my teacher to call the ambulance. It turned out she was severely allergic to peanut butter, and I never had the goal to tell her what I had done that day. We're still friends today, and she strongly believes that her father was trying to kill her that day since she got into a fight with him the day before regarding her dead mother. Oh, oh yeah, that will ruin a friendship. Actually, yeah, I think so. So don't tell her. She's going to get what's coming to her. 3 years ago, my 22 male, sister 15 female, started herself on a downward spiral which has ended with the entire family cutting her off. And now her lies and mistakes are catching up to her, and it's only a matter of time before she wakes up to the nightmare she left in her wake and it all bites her in the ass. 3 years ago when she was 12, I came home to my mother crying in the kitchen. She never does this, so my thought was that my Nana had died. Nope, my sister had accused her of, as she put it, historic abuse. Police were called, social workers were brought in, my mother was nearly arrested. The only defense my mother had was me. I still lived at home and told the police I never heard anything while in the house. That same night, I chased her through my city and had the biggest panic attack of my life. Months later, she admitted it was all a lie and she just wanted to get her own way. Since then, every single time she doesn't get her own way or she isn't the center of attention, she pulls the abuse card or she runs away. In that same time, she is self-diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar. She googled what they were and decided that was her excuse. She also called my mother a failure of a parent and instead wanted to live with the father who is a criminal and has never been present in her life by his own choice. 6 months or so ago, she ran out of excuses for my mother. I moved back home for university, and because I had huge positive changes in my life, I took the spotlight off of her. As my punishment, she accused me of sexually assaulting her almost 8 years ago. This of course never worked because the entire family backed me and I had proof that it was all fake. I was in the hospital 90% of the time around that time, doing exams at school, and anytime I was home, my sister was out of town on extracurricular activities. To this day, my sister still tries to run everybody's lives around her. She blames her overweightness on my mother, as well as her scumbag of a father leaving her on my mom too. She sends videos of her self-harming to the entire family and has admitted she does it all for pity and attention. Last night, she said she refused to come home unless she could speak with and stay with her father on weekends. He agreed, so now it's a waiting game for him to inevitably kick her out and cut her off. And she realizes that every person who ever would have supported her now wants absolutely nothing to do with her. My brother doesn't care. My religious Nana, who doesn't have a bad bone in her body, called her a little shit. And I wouldn't piss on the kid if she was on fire. She's refused help. She's run the mental health of everybody into the ground to the point my mother has made severe suicidal comments, and now her whole world is about to crumble around her, and I personally cannot wait.
Am I the asshole for spending my daughter's tuition money? It sounds bad, but please hear me out. Our daughter is 20 female and recently decided to go back to college after taking a year off. She dropped out of college a few months later, saying it wasn't for her. We adamantly advised against it, but she ended up moving in with her boyfriend and started working in his family's restaurant business. There was still a little north of $30,000 set aside in the account I set aside for her tuition. My wife and I have been wanting to remodel our kitchen for a while, so decided to go ahead and do it with that money. Well, now my daughter has decided to go back to college because it didn't work out with her boyfriend and she didn't like any of the jobs she had following that. She was shocked we used her money towards the house even though we had this conversation before she left. She asked if she could have access to her college tuition before she moved in with her boyfriend, to which we explicitly said no. We said it was safe for her tuition and nothing else, and if she left, we use it for something else. She said that she thought we were bluffing and didn't actually mean it. And she said we need to help her pay for college since we're helping pay for her younger brother's yearly tuition. I said that she needs to work part-time and go to a cheaper place like community college rather than a state school. She's been ignoring her mom's calls and her mom said maybe we could help her. But we're nearing retirement age and a little behind on our goals. I don't want to take away from our savings due to her choices, and I even offered to let her stay at the house.
My wife, 39, and I, 42, have 3 sons, Alex, 15, Dylan, 11, and Jake, 8. When I was a kid, I always wanted a dog, but my parents said no. I never got the chance to get one during my 20s, but recently, my interest in owning one sparked again, so I asked my family what they thought about getting a dog. My wife wasn't enthusiastic about it, but she relented after a few weeks of me asking. Alex and Jake were excited to get one, but Dylan was immediately opposed to the idea. Dylan was always different than my other sons. He never had an interest in sports and was always more subdued than his brothers, which has always made it hard for me to connect with him. He remained opposed to the idea of getting a dog, but me and my other sons managed to wear him down until he finally relented. However, he said that if we get a dog, he wasn't going to be the one interacting with it or taking care of it. That would be completely on me and his brothers. I found this ridiculous, but I agreed in the moment, hoping that he would change his mind after meeting the dog. The problem is, he hasn't changed his mind yet. We've had Zeus for 7 months now, and Dylan has not warmed up to him in the slightest. He doesn't play with the dog, he doesn't cuddle with him, he doesn't let Zeus in his room because he destroys stuff, and whenever he's near the dog, he just ignores him. I find this completely ridiculous. Zeus loves Dylan. He follows him around whenever he sees him and jumps on him to get his attention to play, but Dylan just isn't receptive to it. To change this, I told Dylan last week that he would be in charge of walking the dog every day after school. Dylan straight up refused and has shut down the conversation every time I bring it up. It's been a week and he hasn't walked the dog once. In my frustration, I told him that if he didn't start listening, then I wouldn't allow him to go to the comic book store anymore, and he freaked out and told my wife. Now, my wife is upset with me, claiming that I knew what I was getting into with this, and I knew that Dylan wouldn't be playing with the dog, but his intolerance of the dog is weird and I refuse to entertain it any longer. My wife has been short with me ever since that conversation, and Dylan is cold to me as well. Alex is now agreeing with his mother, which is making me have second thoughts.